All right, we're in the home stretch. We just saw really some amazing data coming out, what's coming out of the Chinese market. And what we're going to talk about now are three people who are living that, who are taking that international market and bringing it to life within their companies. So we're going to find out how they did it. So let me start. So we just saw some slides there with some powerful information. We've got with us Olivia Decker from Decker Bullock Sotheby's, Mark McLaughlin, who runs Pacific Union International, and Stephen Kotler, COO at Douglas Elliman. And they're all doing a tremendous amount of work in the international community. So I wanted to ask you, are you seeing this on the ground? How is that playing out? Anybody? Mark?
Absolutely, yeah. We became pretty active with our Chinese concierge efforts in October of 2013, and in the neighborhoods around the Bay Area, you'll see anywhere from sort of the low end 5% to the high end, maybe in Palo Alto, of probably 30% of the properties being bought by Chinese investors.
Up to 30% of the properties in Palo Alto are being bought by Chinese investors. Now, are these for, what are they using the properties for? Is this for, are they just parking cash? Are they living in them? Are they holding on to them for weekends? I don't know.
Well, there's a variety of reasons. I think it's, as we just heard, is predominantly driven by investment. And you know, they have a generational outlook on time. It's not a 5 to 7 year hold. It's probably a couple generations hold. So it's going to have a significant impact on a market like Palo Alto, where those homes aren't going to be on the market again soon.
Yeah, and Stephen, in the New York City market in particular, we did not see, even with the whole crash in 08, 09, the massive correction, New York City, you know, really weathered that much better than a lot of the rest of the country. And a lot of people say it's because the international buyers really sustained that market. Did you see that, or is that?
Absolutely. I think, you know, we saw a little blip in 2008, but it was probably less than 6 months. We've seen a lot of Chinese activity. We were talking earlier backstage. We have a development in LA called Metropolis, which is being built and is financed by a company called Greenland, which is a state-owned construction company out of China. So we're seeing new development work, we're seeing buyers. We did a deal at a building called 157 in Manhattan for $140 million with a Chinese buyer. So we're seeing, they're coming here for investment, they're coming here with their families if they want to have their kids go to school here. So we're seeing it all over our markets. North Shore of Long Island, a lot of Chinese investment.
Interesting. And Olivia, you do a tremendous amount of work with an international audience. How big of a part of that, of your business, is that market, and how did you get started in that?
You're talking about the Chinese market or the whole?
Well, let's
global?
talk more international. Yeah, let's broaden it now.
In recent years, the Chinese are primary foreign buyers, as we all know. Prior to that, we have a lot of people from UK, from London, Italy, France, South America.
Okay.
And one of my biggest clients who bought 26 properties from me from 1979 it's Mexican from Mexico City, one of the richest men in Mexico City.
And how do you make those connections? Let's talk about that. Let's bring that into it. So
yes.
We know there's that demand out there. We know they're there. We got people in the audience who would love to be able to get a piece of that market. How did you get your connections in there? What did you do?
Yeah, networking with different people. For example, the Mexican client I met through an architect from Stanford, designed and developed very high-end properties, and he introduced me to this buyer. In recent years, I go to Monaco Yacht Show, the Sotheby's auctions in Hong Kong and London, and the Cannes Film Festival, Wimbledon, all these high-end events. Go to those events because you meet all these people. 4 years ago, I was at the Monaco Yacht Show, and I introduced a client of mine to an Italian property owner. So a year later, I sold a $49 million villa. The buyer and seller who I introduced at that Monaco yacht, we did a deal at $49 million.
You know, it's interesting because we often hear people talk. We've had people up here talking about the luxury market, and the luxury market and the international market obviously have a lot in common. And a lot of the practices that work for the luxury market are the same for the international market. As you say, network with the people and go where they are. So, you know, go to these places where international people are to meet them, and that's how you make those kind of connections. But when you're talking, you're doing it from an agent from a one-on-one level. from a company perspective, what kinds of things have you done to build those connections, to build your practices, to make them international from New York, from San Francisco, or from New York and all over the United States now, and from San Francisco? Either one.
So we started looking at this about 4 years ago and really wanting to see how we could form relationships with partners that thought the same way we did, that conducted business the same way that we did, and had the same values. And so we went out and looked for a partner that was more than just a referral network or a franchise, and really tried to find a company that had the same value. And so we found Knight Frank Residential, which had about 380 offices around the world in all the markets that we thought were important to us. And so I had really two constituencies to think about: our brokers, our agents, and how they could have a referral network, also be able to market their properties abroad, help them sell properties of relationships they had with people in the US that own properties overseas, and then our new development business, because all the developers we work with all want to know where are the foreign buyers. The market in New York City is close to 50% foreign investors right now, or foreign buyers that are using property and living in it. And so with Knight Frank, we created a network of two companies that are both independently run, with 17,000 agents in 450 offices, and with boots on the ground. I think that's one of the important parts of this is you can't just assume you have a network and you're going to send a referral out and it's going to work, right? Or they're going to send a referral in. So we have people, actually, I have one person that works for me that's traveled 750,000 miles this year, going to Asia, going to North Africa, going to the Mideast and Europe, meeting with buyers, representing property that we have, and doing business. And we've done about 120 million in volume since October of last year in overseas resale business. So buyers that are coming to us.
Overseas buyers buying in the United States.
Buying in the United States.
Mark, the idea that there's an international market is something that a lot of sellers want to hear, a lot of agents have as part of their presentation, and usually doesn't mean much more than our website is available to an international audience, meaning anybody who's in anywhere can go find a website. That's not really international networking. Neither is my websites available in Mandarin or in French or whatever. You guys have gone a lot farther, Pacific Union. Tell me what you guys have done to build that international network.
Well, I think the most important thing, as Olivia said, is if you're going to engage with the international community, the first thing you got to do is go there. So in the fall of 2013, 4 of us went over to sponsor an event in Beijing. And the first thing we did when we got there in our hotel rooms is we searched for property at PacUnion.com back here in the United States. And I have to share with you, it is not a rich experience. It's very slow, it's very frustrating, and nobody's going to access our site. So what we decided, the first thing we decided we had to do was we need to build a site in Mandarin, technically written in China, hosted in China with a .cn, not a .com. That's not what they use. They use a .cn. So we have a full replica of our site from PacUnion.com in the United States, hosted in Beijing. We have an employee on the ground who's really our international concierge, who does all kinds of logistics and translation services, and can go check people out for us in the city of Beijing. We have Christie's in Shanghai with an office. So we have sort of a virtual presence over there, and I think it's critical to our success.
So first lesson, obviously, don't wait for them to come to you, go to them.
Absolutely.
Like put boots on the ground, as you said. Make the connections, be there, go to where they are. Don't expect that they're just going to find you, because why would they? What are some of the challenges that you've overcome to do this? What are some of the biggest obstacles in the way to establishing an international network to help get that business going?
I think for us, it's been learning the attributes of the Chinese sort of complexion and the way they do business, and just their mannerisms. You know, they'll nod their head. That doesn't mean they agree with you. That just means they heard you. And when we nod our head, it's usually an affirmation of whatever's talking about. Their sensitivity to timeline is not like our sensitivity to timeline. They might sign a contract that says 60, 90 days or whatever. The dates go by. They're like, what? Why does that matter? Well, it's culturally we're different here. And we need to both educate them, but we also need to be sensitive to their cultural attributes.
You know, it's funny. I did my master's in cross-cultural decision making, how people make decisions in different cultures. And for example, one of the easiest things is looking someone in the eye is such a Western thing. You look someone in the eye, it means you're being direct, it means you're being truthful, being credible. But you look somebody in the eye in many Asian cultures and you're actually being very confrontational, and it's not a way to build that kind of rapport. What kind of obstacles have you seen building in that international presence?
I think trust is the first thing that you have to think about. So you have this broker from the US that's coming over and trying to do business, and they don't know you. They don't know Douglas Elliman. I mean, they may encounter us, but they probably don't. And so having that trust, I think, is important. And also, you talk about cultures, and we're selling all over the world. And so having the ability to have people in those locations with our partnership that know the people in those markets is important. Turkey right now is very big. There's a lot of money coming out of Turkey. And we did a $35 million deal at 432 Park with a Turkish buyer without ever knowing us. And so to have people there in Bodrum that know these people are very, very important. The other part of it is understanding the purchase process. And so when you say to them they have to sign a contract, or they need to transfer funds, or they need to potentially finance, and what bank can you go to that's going to do foreign financing? So all those things are important. So to be able to put together all the best of the advisors and people around us that can help them make that decision is, I think, the important part, the trust piece.
I can't imagine how complicated and tough that is to explain to them the transactional process, because just trying to explain to people from California who are buying a home in New York that they have to hire an attorney and that their contract is not is not locked in until they get it signed, and you can lose the deal, is something that's foreign to them. Escrow versus closing. So I can only imagine how complicated it is from someone coming from a completely different culture.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Olivia, tell me about what do you see as the obstacles? What have you overcome to build the kind of massive international presence that you have?
As far as Chinese market, I'm actually fortunate because I was born in Shanghai. So I'm Chinese, I speak the language, I go back there often, I have family, friends, contacts there. And I'm actually in the process of buying the Shanghai South Beach franchise, open office there. Like Steven said, trust is very important to build. So having an office there, South Beach already have office in Beijing, Tianjin, and Hainan, Hong Kong, Taiwan, Singapore, and Japan. So we're already in a very big part of Asia. But Shanghai is, my application already being processed right now. So
again, boots on the ground is important.
Boots on the ground,
need to be there.
absolutely. Be there, build the trust, meet people. And in fact, October 24 this year, San Francisco Ballet is going there. So I'm sponsor the welcoming party in Shanghai for the San Francisco Ballet Company. The whole dancers and the trustees and all the major sponsors from San Francisco will be there. So you do all these things to build your name out and your contacts and your trust. So they have to know you, really. And once they trust you, the process is just detail. How the escrow work or how the insurance, title insurance, because once they trust you, they said, just do it, handle it. You don't have to train them for that whole process.
I know we have mics out there. If somebody has a question they'd like to ask the panel, we're going to have a few minutes at the end to be able to ask that. Just line up and I'll look at you and you can ask your question. But in the meantime, I want to ask, so you've been building this, you've been doing this, and one of the best ways to learn is from a mistake. So give me something that as you look back, you say, boy, I wish we'd done this differently at the beginning, and we might have missed, maybe we missed an opportunity. Something you did that you wish you'd done differently that you learned from.
As painful as it was, I hired a consultant that told me he was going to turn on the water faucet full of transactions out of China for us. It was expensive, and I don't think we got one deal out of it.
All right, that's
you got to
good.
go there. You got to go there. You got to.
I would tell you that there's a perception that, and we've been talking a lot about China, but there's money coming in from all over the world into the U.S. A lot of flight capital, but in Singapore and in a lot of Asia, you think that the buyers are all these very big buyers, big ticket numbers. And actually, the appetite from the Chinese and from Singapore, we're seeing that is under 2 million. They want to buy between 850 and 1.5 million. They're usually syndicating, and maybe a couple families that are getting together to buy an apartment. And so what we're now doing is talking to developers about the product that they want to offer overseas and the product that they maybe want to build as well, because the demand is not for all these $100 million deals. They're great, but again, I'd rather be Derek Jeter and hit a lot of singles than hitting home runs all day.
I'd like to be Derek Jeter for a variety
of reasons. So the mistakes, I think, at the beginning were thinking we would go out and offer the only high-end product and assume that that would sell. Now we've retooled and we have people that are out, boots on the ground in these markets, offering product that's quite frankly affordable for these buyers, and maybe they'll buy 2 or 3 of them. But
so the mistake was thinking that it was always going to be very, very high end, but there's actually we'll call it a middle market.
It's a lucrative market. Absolutely. Yeah.
I love when the middle market is $1 to $2 million. Isn't that always interesting?
Yeah.
Olivia, mistake. Something you did that you want to share that you could learn from.
One of the things that Steven said, that the high end, I specialize in very high-end here, so thinking that's going to go well in China as well, in Asia or other parts of the world. But a lot of them are buying second homes, vacation homes, third homes, and most of them buying, for Chinese anyway, buying for their children going college here. So they're obviously not buying a $10, $20 million home.
That's
so I learned that too. And,
so you can't always assume it's going to be some magnet
eventually,
parking $100 million.
eventually the parents might buy a $10, $20 million house. When the children live here, they come to visit the children. We sold a $6 million home in Tiburon to a Russian billionaire for his two children, 20 years old, 20 and 22, going to UC Berkeley. So now the parents visiting, and so I was trying to sell him a $35 million house to the parents.
We've talked a little bit about what people who are in the international market want in terms of that it's not quite always a $20, $30 million house. But for example, I just bought a home with my wife. My wife is a Chinese American who was adamant that for feng shui reasons, we could not buy a house where the staircase led out the front door. That's bad luck. All the good luck of the house goes out the front door. Besides feng shui, which everybody I think is familiar with, are there other design features? Are there things that you see, and it doesn't have to be the Asian market, it could be whatever the international market is. Are there things that international buyers want that would surprise people different from what you see the American audience looking for? You're nodding.
First of all, they want new. So they do not want to remodel anything. If it's fixer upper, don't even bother for the Chinese buyers or Asian buyer. They really want something that's done, beautifully done, nothing to work, turnkey. They also want to buy furniture. So if the furniture in the house looks good, staging furniture or owner's furniture, offer the furniture, they can just come in, buy the whole thing, and move in. I saw a house in Belvedere, $16 million. Chinese buyer, bought the house, and every little thing, dishes, and we were fighting over a piano. The seller did not want to sell, but at the end, he had to have that piano. And
they threw in the piano.
We had to buy the piano. I mean, seller agreed to sell the piano too. So yeah, they just keep in mind that's what they want.
We had somebody that actually wanted to buy the housekeeper as well, that wanted to come with the house.
That's a cultural conflict.
But
right there.
I would tell you that we've seen everything. We had a deal recently with a buyer that was buying land, and it was surprising to see a Chinese buyer that was buying land. It was a referral from Beverly Hills to New York City to the North Shore of Long Island, and we sold them a $20 million piece of property. What we learned after, and it was actually great at the closing, they had a Chinese ceremony during the closing, which was very, very interesting. But that was a test purchase, the $20 million purchase, and there was $200 million behind it to do more investment. So you never know who you're talking to as well. Do your homework on who they are. It's hard to get information on foreign buyers. We use a couple different sources, but you never know who you're talking to. So just always be ready.
Any particular insights into what they're looking for, what they're not looking for?
Well, the new for sure, everything has been said, but it's kind of like saying, what's the typical Texan looking for? I mean, it's
big,
very
big. Texan wants big. I know
very
that.
diversified. So everything from a condo for somebody going to school to the stunning prices that have already been referenced.
Interesting. All right, so we got no questions from the audience. So let me ask you one. Is there somebody? I can't say. Oh, yeah, run up to the mic. Quick. Brad's going to yell at me if I run long.
Okay, well, I flew from New Zealand, so give me a break.
International person.
Okay, so when we're in Auckland, 39% of all buyers are now Chinese, which is crazy, right? Which is changing me as a broker, meaning I'm going to have Chinese agents when it turns over, when they turn into sellers. Now, my question was actually about the banking regulations that are about to change in China at the moment, and if you could help me with that insight, because from my understanding, the banks are allowing the Chinese to then release 50% of their equity and come in and buy cash without coming and using the banks in the country. So this is about to explode.
All right, there's new
that
banking
correct?
regulations. Can either of you speak to that?
Yeah, it's called QDII2.
Yeah.
And it is going to free up, literally, the gentleman from July would probably know better, but it's going to free up billions and maybe trillions of dollars coming out of China.
Yeah. So this is basically going to double what we're talking.
So this is going to become even more of an issue going forward.
Yeah.
All right, please join me in thanking the panel. I thought that was great. A lot of very helpful stuff.